Alright, welcome back. So today's topic is reflections. Okay, so yesterday and the day before we talked about translations, which is just moving things left to right, up and down. Reflections, so your warm-up is, what do you see when you look in the mirror? Okay, obviously you see your reflection, but what does that mean? Okay. So when we say mirror image, we mean that we are seeing the exact same thing somewhere else. So when you look in a mirror, you see our reflection or a copy of ourselves, right? So we see each other, we see ourselves backwards, but that's besides the point. We see a reflection. So in the last section, we moved up and down, left and right. So if I want to find the reflection, the first one here is over the X and Y axis, okay? So if I wanted to reflect this and pretend like my X axis, remember this is my X axis, and this is my Y axis, right? If I want to pretend this is my mirror, it's almost like me folding on top of the x-axis. So if I folded my paper right here, where would this point land? And all I have to think is, okay, well this is 1, 2 away from my line, so I want it to be 1, 2 away from my line here. So this would be my point A over the x-axis, okay? And same idea if I were to reflect it over the y-axis. I would use that line as my folding point. I would fold it and I would see where would this point end up on this side of the line. So again, all I have to do is count 1, 2, 3 away from that line. And I need to go 1, 2, 3 on this line. So this is where my point B would go. So if I flip this line over the x-axis, it's going to go this direction. If I flip it over the y-axis, it's going to go over here. Okay. Now you don't have to draw all these bumps. You can just count them. But if you want to draw the bumps, that's okay. All right. Now just like in translation, I'm going to draw a line between these two. Okay. So that's actually a line. I can reflect not only a point, but a whole shape, okay? So maybe it's a line, maybe it's a triangle, maybe it's a square, whatever. So I notice that these are all just 1 away. So my first part is from the x-axis, right? Okay, so I'm going to call this point A and this point B. So if I flip this over, this becomes my A prime, and this becomes my B prime, and I draw my line between them. Okay, so that's over the x-axis, pretty easy. Now the y-axis, it's probably a little harder. So the A is only 1 away, right? But B is 1, 2, 3, 4 away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So I have to be careful how I'm labeling. So I'm going to call this A double prime and this B double prime because it's the second one on the same graph, okay? So make sure it makes sense when I reflect this over, the A's and B's line up. But here, the A's are both the closest to my reflection and the B's are the farther ones away, okay? So if I were to fold this line in half, remember, it would be on top of itself. Okay. So be careful when you're flipping objects. Where is that actually going to land, okay? Go ahead and pause it if you need to. So reflections preserve shape and size, just like we saw with the line. This line is literally just being moved over here or moved over there, okay? It's the same size, same shape, nothing's changed about that, okay? And just like with translations, if I give you a point, you can figure out the new point without actually doing much. So if you are told to flip it over the x-axis, you just change the sign of whatever the y value is. So if it was a +5, it becomes a -5. If it was a -4, then it becomes a +4. Flip the sign. If you flip it over the y-axis, you change the sign of the x value. And you don't change the sign of the other one, just whatever value is opposite from this. So x goes with y, y goes with x. Okay. Now again, this is only if you flip it over the x and y axis. If you were to flip it over the line x equals 1, this does not apply, okay? So you got to be careful about that. But in our case, we're only really flipping over the x and y axis. So if you're given the point 5, -4, and you want to flip it over the x-axis, what's the new point? Well, I just told you when we flip it over the x-axis, we change the sign of the y value. So it's positive here, or I'm sorry, it's negative here, so I'm going to make it positive. So my new point is 5, 4. If I flip that same point over the y-axis, I flip the sign of the x value, so it's going to be -5, -4. Okay. If you want to graph those and test it, make sure I'm right, go for it. So your x-slip is if you're given the point -1, 4, what will the new point be when you flip it over the x-axis? So you're going to follow these rules again for that, okay? Hopefully that's not too much. I didn't write your homework down on here, and I'm not 100% sure what it is. I want to say it's number 1 through 5 and then 6B, but I can't remember what page. So whatever page 8.2 starts on, okay? Have a great day and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.